For a limited time, get free merchandise when purchasing a Premise tier membership. This limited time offer will return periodically when new merchandise releases, so yes, give me all your money right now.
What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and today we have quite a bit to discuss from Sledgehammer Games working on an unannounced 2021 project alongside Call of Duty 2020, as well as the possibility of Spec Ops now being cancelled with Season 2 of Modern Warfare, and we're also going to be talking about this remake controversy that will be affecting Treyarch's next installment. But first and foremost, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, because about 55% of you that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so make sure you guys are getting notifications every time I update you on Black Ops 4 Year 2, Black Ops 5, and even Zombies Chronicles 2. Now, this first bit of information does come from the man himself, the Gaming Revolution, who's been receiving a lot of new information lately from his sources about the future of the Call of Duty franchise, and this tweet really struck my attention. So apparently, Sledgehammer Games has time to work not only on COD 2020 alongside Treyarch and Raven, but they're also working on this unannounced project for 2021 that's also apparently not a part of the main Call of Duty cycle. So what we could assume is that COD 2020 releases, right, in the fall of 2020, and then sometime after New Year's, when it hits 2021, Sledgehammer Games will be releasing this other unannounced project. But looking at the circumstances of Sledgehammer right now, it seems like their studio is probably too small to handle a big Call of Duty release. A lot of people left the studio after World War II. I know Aaron Halen became the director over at Sledgehammer. They've been doing a fantastic job ever since, but looking at the circumstances of how 2020 went down, right, Sledgehammer wasn't ever in charge of 2020. It was actually Raven. Sledgehammer was the support studio to Raven working on that game, apparently because Raven, I guess, has a bigger studio and was able to handle a major Call of Duty release, which would have been really promising, really exciting to see. Raven hasn't done their own new Call of Duty before. They've only done Modern Warfare Remastered, helped other studios, so that then fell through, and then Treyarch was then put in charge of 2020 with both Sledgehammer and Raven under their belt as support studios. So let's just keep assuming that Sledgehammer Games is still a small support studio for some of the major developers. Looking at what this project could be in 2021, maybe it's some type of free-to-play experience on console, something very limited, something similar to Call of Duty Mobile, where it's like a free-to-play application that has a bunch of rehashed content from the past. Maybe it's something not even Call of Duty related, but based on how the Gaming Revolution's tweets look, it does seem like this unannounced 2021 project is probably Call of Duty related, just not part of the main Call of Duty cycle, so it won't be part of the yearly release, which Activision really hasn't done before. You know, Call of Duty Mobile and some other things they've done with Call of Duty are an exception, but looking at like an actual release on console and PC, they've never done anything outside of what we're used to, right? The tradition of the yearly release. So people are making jokes that the cycle could now be broken, which are pretty funny, but looking at what this really could be, right? At first I was thinking, well, what if this is Sledgehammer helping Infinity Ward create the next Modern Warfare 2, right? Presumably, we're going back to a 2-year development cycle, so in 2021, we should see the return of Infinity Ward with a new game once again, and supposedly a sequel to the current Modern Warfare, so the new Modern Warfare 2. What if Sledgehammer Games is already assisting Infinity Ward in making that happen, since they are a support studio, so they'll be helping out as much as they can with wherever they can? That's a possibility, but the way TGR's tweet looks, right, that it's not part of the main Call of Duty cycle, it does seem like Sledgehammer is probably going to be doing all of the work on this one on their own with the limited team they do have. And for all we know too, in the next few months, Sledgehammer Games, you know, increases their staff and they become a big studio again, to the point where they can handle a major release on their own at some point. So I'm curious if Activision would ever consider having the yearly release, right, every fall, then at some point after New Year's or sometime in the spring, they do a smaller release of something else, and then they'll keep it going from there, right? Maybe they are trying out a new strategy with how they release their content. You know, we all wanted the Call of Duty cycle to really end, right? You know, maybe push the game back by a year or release a new game every 3 years. That's kind of what we want, but it seems like Activision isn't interested, and they're going to be continuing that yearly release on top of potentially adding a game in between that yearly release as well. So I'm not sure what that could be. Now imagine if this was Advanced Warfare 2. Now I thought Advanced Warfare was a fairly solid Call of Duty. Sledgehammer Games definitely knows how to make Call of Duty, and I think what's unfortunate is that Advanced Warfare 2 was in development at one point in time, for quite some time actually, before Activision came in and said, you know what, you gotta go back to boots on the ground, and that's when development started on World War II. And Sledgehammer Games apparently was crushed about that, because they honestly believed that a good way to compete with a popular game like Fortnite was to come out with a game that was going to be Advanced Warfare 2 that is what I would consider kid-friendly, where there's a lot of colorful customization options for the exosuits and the outfits, a game that would really appeal to a lot of younger people out there. And I think they were probably right about that. That probably was the way that they could have competed with some of the more popular games today, but unfortunately they just didn't get a chance to do that. Maybe one day they will, and honestly I think they deserve at least one more chance to work on a futuristic game like that, because they did a really good job with Advanced Warfare. But again, the possibility is still out there. I don't think it's realistic to think of them doing Advanced Warfare 2 right after COD 2020 and before COD 2021. It just wouldn't make sense to see a major Call of Duty release like that in the middle of the year. But for all we know, they could work on a small scale Advanced Warfare style battle royale that does involve exosuits, does involve their original vision for Advanced Warfare 2, but is a free-to-play experience similar to COD Mobile. But you guys let me know in the comments what you think of the possibility of a new free-to-play experience entering the market. I know Call of Duty Online for China was fairly successful, but unfortunately it isn't getting support anymore at this moment in time. But it would be cool if Sledgehammer brought that experience back to life for all regions and all platforms out there, and it would work similar to COD Mobile, where there's loads of paywalls, lots of microtransactions, and Activision would hope that it replicates the same success that Call of Duty Mobile has. But moving on to the possibility of Spec Ops potentially being canceled with Season 2 of Modern Warfare. We got a 50-second trailer which didn't show very much, but we also got a roadmap which has no mention of what's going on to Spec Ops, and it really had me scratching my head, because at the end of the campaign it does say that the story will continue in Spec Ops, and it kind of did with the missions we do have in game already. But I was really expecting them to go full force with this campaign type of DLC, where every time they release a new Spec Ops mission, it'll be a really in-depth type of experience that when you beat it, you'll get a nice cutscene furthering the story of the actual campaign. And that's what everybody was thinking. I think that's what everybody's expectations have been with Spec Ops, but it's really fell flat on its face, unfortunately. And looking at this roadmap here, we have day one content that includes Rust and Atlas Superstore for multiplayer. We have a new ground war map, which is Boneyard. We have a few gunfight maps, some new weapons, the Ghost Operator, and some new multiplayer modes. And then looking at in season, we have another new multiplayer map known as Hideout. We have some other operators, a classified weapon, and some other multiplayer modes. But again, no mention of Spec Ops. So are they taking a season off and not working on Spec Ops now? Maybe they'll come back in Season 3 full swinging with some new Spec Ops missions. I just don't know. My theory is that maybe there's no Spec Ops this season because Battle Royale is going to be the focus, right? If the gaming revolution is saying that Battle Royale is around the corner and that it's close to finished, that probably means that it is planned for Season 2, because as we've also talked about many times in the past, the longer you wait, the worse it's going to get, and it's just not going to be worth releasing it, because the Battle Royale in Modern Warfare needs some type of spotlight. Hopefully it's good, but it needs some type of spotlight for at least a couple of months before COD 2020 releases, because if you look at it, right, let's say they release the Battle Royale in the summer, it's only going to get a couple of months of really good gameplay before COD 2020 takes that spotlight. So the sooner the better. It's not going to be worth it to wait any longer, so I do think it's right around the corner. So maybe that's going to be the focus of Season 2, right? You have this new content on the roadmap, the Battle Royale, then Season 3 comes out, you get some updates to the Battle Royale, multiplayer, but then you also get the return of Spec Ops. But if not that, then it looks like Spec Ops is being canned, which is really unfortunate, because it just goes to show that if the community doesn't like something, Activision is just going to pull the plug on it, similar to the Chaos storyline from Black Ops 4 Zombies. So I'm really curious where that leaves us in the future. If they do end up abandoning Spec Ops, that's crazy, man. I didn't expect that to happen. I was hoping that they would at least revamp the Spec Ops a little bit. I know in the Gaming Revolution's recent Q&A, my question about Spec Ops actually got answered, and here's what he had to say. We were having problems keeping it up at 60 frames a second. If Battle Royale were to come out with the game, then Spec Ops would be different, but since Battle Royale didn't, and we wouldn't keep up 60 frames a second at a time, we changed Spec Ops to have more stable frame rate. At the moment, Battle Royale is running at a high frames per second, but we needed more time to optimize the frame rate, and we just didn't have that time. So it's crazy to think that Modern Warfare had a 3-year plus development cycle, right? They had so much time to make this game and still didn't have enough time to fix something like that, which really does blow my mind. But looking at the Battle Royale going at a high frame rate, maybe that'll be good news for Spec Ops, but it really isn't looking bright at the moment, so they haven't mentioned anything about Spec Ops at this moment in time. Maybe there'll be a tweet at some point one of these days by one of the developers that'll answer the question about what's happening with Spec Ops in the future. But last but not least, we we have the remake controversy. I've talked about this very briefly in a previous video, but looking at how Modern Warfare season is being handled, let's just assume the Battle Royale is still great, let's just assume everything else works out, but looking at how the post-launch content season has been for Modern Warfare, it's literally been remakes, right? At the very least, we get some new gunfight maps, maybe a slightly new ground war map, but looking at Season 2 at least, the new multiplayer maps are essentially remakes, and the one new multiplayer map on there is directly from Spec Ops, so nothing new is really getting added, and that kind of worries me because looking at the recent rumor, which again I'll be talking about in a separate video soon, the possibility of seeing the Victus remakes at launch of Black Ops 5 is looking very, very high, right? The information went from, yeah, the Victus maps are done for Black Ops 4 to Activision are now trying to push that back to be launch content for Black Ops 5. So already we're getting news that remakes could be a part of Black Ops 5's launch content, right? And looking at how Modern Warfare is being handled, it's literally going to mean that it'll be 3 years in a row with remade content at release of a game. And I'm not even trying to complain, but it's just very apparent that something is going on behind the scenes, right? The fact that all of the post-launch content for Modern Warfare has pretty much been remade content just goes to show that Infinity Ward is either really focused on that Battle Royale or they're focused on getting COD 2021 put together so that they have a stable development time, right? Something is going on. There's a lot of pressure on the line. We have next generation hardware coming out next year, so there's a lot of stuff going on with the Call of Duty franchise, but it just gets me worried that we're in for the same cycle all over again once Black Ops 5 launches because the game may potentially have remade content as well. But let me know what you think of that down below in the comment section. There's so much going on right now with the franchise, but hopefully Activision turns it all around for the better. Their recent investors call really was, probably one of the most discreet calls we've heard from Activision about the Call of Duty franchise. They didn't want to announce who the developer was of the next COD, and that's for obvious reasons. It's definitely Treyarch, but they don't want to have that bad press right now. I think as the Gaming Revolution also tweeted out, it just makes sense to wait on that announcement, bring us some exciting gameplay for the next COD to distract us from the fact that Treyarch is the team behind it, right? That's really smart on their end, a really good strategy. It seems like that's what's really going on now. But again, there seems to be this really sudden change of the cycle that's going on, right? Sledgehammer working on another project. We have a bunch of remastered titles apparently in development. A lot of changes are coming as we enter a new decade here for the Call of Duty franchise. But hopefully, again, it is all for the better. And in terms of what's going on with Treyarch's next installment, we're just going to assume right now, right? Treyarch, Raven, and Sledgehammer are all working together on that one game, while it looks like Infinity Ward, High Moon Studios, maybe Beanox, they'll all work together for COD 2021. Maybe that's going to be the new trend going forward, have multiple studios working on one game. We're going back to a 2-year development cycle, which does require more manpower, I would say, because these games are more demanding than they were back then when COD was on a 2-year development cycle. So if you have multiple studios working on one game at once, hopefully it's not a case of too many cooks in the kitchen. Hopefully they can all get along, and we're going to wish for the best going forward. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Check all links down below in the description. Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everyone.